Hey guys, Bugcat7 here. Okay, it is Friday, December 27th, 2019, and I want to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research channel here on YouTube. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. Alright, guys, we're going to continue looking into the quote unquote giants or large hominids, as I like to call them, state by state. And in this video, we're going to cover Wisconsin. And I already did one on Wisconsin a few videos back about the Wisconsin Mounds, which is one of these old articles, newspaper articles, or publication articles from some time back. I think it was the early 20th century, maybe late 19th century. But it's just a comprehensive sort of article, covered a lot of bases with the mounds in Wisconsin, which Wisconsin seems to be another one of these states with a lot of mound complexes and these effigy mounds, which are even more interesting. So just a state with a whole bunch of really interesting stuff. So I'm going to cover as many articles as I can here for you, and there's some very interesting ones here as usual, as like it is in most of these states. But you'll find the details interesting as they often are. 9-foot skeleton, Maple Creek, Wisconsin. I'm going to cover another article, same account in a different publication, but it's interesting to contrast the difference and add information, etc., etc. Wisconsin mound open, skeleton found of a man over 9 feet high with an enormous skull. Maple Creek, Wisconsin, December 22nd. One of the 3 recently discovered mounds in this town has been opened. In it was found the skeleton of a man of gigantic size. The bones measured from head to foot over 9 feet and were in a fair state of preservation. The skull was as large as a half-bushel measure. Some finely tempered rods of copper and other relics were lying near the bones. The mound from which these relics were taken is 10 feet high and 30 feet long and varies from 6 to 8 feet in width. The 2 mounds of lesser size will be excavated soon. Maple Creek is a town in Allegany County, Wisconsin, United States. The population was 687 at the 2000 census. According to the United States Census Bureau, the town has a total area of 21.7 square miles, so not very big, like a postage stamp. This is a New York Times article, December 20th, 1897. And just interesting, these finely tempered rods of copper and other relics were lying near the bones, so I'm interested in that. And in this next article, at Maple and Potato Creek, 9 foot 6 inches. So this is, I think, covering the same incidents, but just some added information, I think. Skeletons of mound builders found. St. Paul, December 11th. Special. An interesting relic of prehistoric times has been discovered on the banks of the Chippewa River in northern Wisconsin, just between Maple and Potato Creeks. A party of hunters discovered 3 mounds at this spot, whose curious appearance and symmetrical construction at once indicated that they were the work of the mound builders. The skull and leg bones of a human being were found close to the bottom of the mound and were taken out in fairly good condition. The skull was as large around as a half-bushel measure, and Dr. McCormick estimated the height of the man, judging by the bones of the leg, to be at least 9 feet and 6 inches. The skull and chest of another skeleton, much smaller than the first, probably a woman, was found beside the other. While excavating, there was picked up a slender rod of copper, finely molded, and as rigid as a piece of steel. The rod is about double the thickness of a shoemaker's needle and nearly 13 inches long. So finely tempered is the copper that the strongest man could not bend or break it. Okay, so That's pretty strong. I mean, something so thin like that made of copper, even if it was brass or, you know, any other alloy of copper or whatever, it seems like you'd be able to bend that no problem. Maybe it wasn't copper. Maybe it was something else. I mean, I'm not even saying steel. Just it could have been something else. And these things so finely tempered and double the thickness of a shoemaker's needle. It's not very thick, and maybe these relics were carried by these people for some reason or whatever. But let's say they were relics of a yet another people in the distant past that these people had and took it with them to their graves. What if it was something like that? Okay, it wasn't copper or steel or anything we know about. I mean, I recall from one of the northeastern states an account there where the several different specialists, academic specialists, were dispatched from the university to look at some dig or whatever, and they found some material that they couldn't identify. They couldn't identify the material that whatever the artifact was made of there. I mean, you have to think about things like that. So whatever it is, it just seems awfully strange that whatever alloy you can think of copper would never be any harder than maybe 5.5 on the Mohs scale. Okay, granite and things like that are 6.5. Andesite 7. You're not cutting anything like that with any copper alloy anything. Doesn't matter how finely tempered it is or whatever, it'd be very hard or whatever. But this sounds very unusual. This doesn't sound like copper or copper alloy anything. If it's something that thin that you can't bend, it's got to be stronger than steel. So what might that have been? Lake Delavan, Wisconsin skull. Strange skeletons found. Indication that tribe hitherto unknown once lived in Wisconsin. Special in the New York Times. Madison, Wisconsin, May 3rd. The discovery of several skeletons of human beings while excavating a mound at Lake Delavan indicates a heretofore unknown race of men once inhabited southern Wisconsin. Information of discovery was brought to Madison today by Maurice Morrissey of Delavan, who came here to attend a meeting of the Republican State Central Committee. Curator Charles E. Brown of the State Historical Museum will investigate the discoveries within a few days. Upon opening one large mound at the Lake Lawn Farm, 18 skeletons were discovered by the Phillips brothers. The heads, presumably those of men, are much larger than the heads of any race which inhabit America today. From directly over the eye sockets, the heads slope straight back, and the nasal bones protrude far above the cheekbones. The jaw bones are long and pointed, bearing a minute resemblance to the head of a monkey. The teeth in the front of the jaw are regular molars. So here's very interesting to me. The teeth in the jaw, in the front of the jaw, are regular molars? Wow. You ain't chewing meat or going after, prey with those or whatever, man. You may have to chewing up something you gotta grind up real fine with your teeth. If the front teeth were molars, or they might have been very, very worn. But although worn, still there, which would be unusual for anybody today to have worn teeth without any cavities or having issues. And again, with the skulls, the shape of the skulls, we're not talking about the Adena people now, because the Adena had the vaulted cranials, sort of straight up like Egghead from the old Batman. Vincent Price played the Egghead, not even like the Coneheads, like Egghead. And these are not like that. Yet, they exhibit a high level of intelligence, or they have sloping foreheads and other strange features in their skulls, like the protruding nasal cavity and the sharp jaw and whatnot. Monkey faces, I guess. I don't know. Oh, had to get something. So there was also found in the mounds the skeletons, presumably of women, which had similar heads but were similar in facial characteristics. The skeletons were embedded in charcoal and covered over with layers of baked clay to shed water from the sepulchre. And it's very interesting about these baked clay sepulchres. We keep hearing about these things. So here we see another element of the burials that's common to what we hear about all the time. So maybe for that particular era or culture or whatever, this was common to those burials. And then things like gravel pit burials or tomb type burials were another era. Here's another article about it. Today, 18 skeletons of a hitherto unknown race were found in a mound at Lake Delavan in southern Wisconsin. The skulls of the skeletons, which were presumed to be males, were unusually large. The various lengths of the skeletons uncovered were not revealed. This is 1912, New York Times. And he mentions this Linda Godfrey has done some amazing research work on the Lake Delavan story here. Here's the article. It's on the Phillips brothers doing the excavation while he refers to the people of these skeletons as being a powerful prehistoric race. Linda Godfrey writes, however, on a recent visit, some friends and I were allowed to look through the files where I found an old newspaper clipping of a burial dig from the Milwaukee Journal, date unknown. This one, see scan left of the copy the museum made for me of the newspaper clip, revealed a skeleton with a truly strange and large and weirdly shaped skull that was unearthed in the Kletch Park along with the Milwaukee River, probably in the 1930s. The photo includes the silhouette of Director of Anthropology at Milwaukee Public Museum, W.H. McKern. So here's the photo there. They're looking at this weird skeleton there. All right. And it does seem to have a very odd looking skull there. And whatnot. So again, we're not talking about the Adena now, or maybe even the Hopewell. We're just talking about just a different race, a different era, a different class, yet still built mounds, etc. So I don't know, but it seems there has to be a way to parse these things out, because we're talking about people with different types of physiologies or phenotypes, and are they separate? Are they one? Are they related? I mean, we don't know these things, but it would be nice to get a handle on it. Giant bones at Fond du Lac. Giant Indian bones. Discovery of an extraordinary skeleton near Fond du Lac. Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, June 6th, special. An Indian skeleton was dug up on the farm of Matt and Joseph Leon, 1 mile south of St. Cloud Sunday. Okay, so I think it gets a little bit deeper here. Giant skeletons found in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, September 2nd. 2 skeletons, which each measuring more than 7 feet in length, were discovered Thursday in a gravel pit. Okay, so here's the gravel pit burials. Okay, was this for a specific class of high-ranking individuals, and the other burials for a different class with the baked clay, and the ones with the ashes and charcoal, specifically charcoal. It's just, they don't say, just ash or what, it's charcoal all the time. So, okay. In a gravel pit in forest near here, I guess in the forest. The skulls are twice as large as those of an ordinary adult and the thigh bones are almost 6 inches longer than those of a 6 foot man. The bones are in a good state of preservation. The skeletons, which are thought to be the remains of some prehistoric race, will probably be sent to Milwaukee for examination. Okay, so sent to Milwaukee, and whatever happened to them. So 1905, the Times Dispatch. Okay, so you're just commenting on it. The skulls were twice as large as an ordinary adult. The statement says a lot about the average cubic capacity for a skull is about 1,400 cc. Some of the elongated skulls from South America are 2,200 to 3,200 cc. So that's rather large, but it seems to me that the cubic capacity of the skull, referring to maybe these are the vaulted cranium, like the Adena that we're talking about here. Okay, when you hear about the increased capacity CCs there, probably the Adena, which is found all over this section of the country as well. Rock County, enormous human skeleton, a remarkable skeleton unearthed. What does it say here? I guess you can't see the top. Janesville, August 25th. Several days ago, some laborers were digging a foundation for a barn on the grounds of Mr. Stanley in the town of Janesville. They unearthed a human skeleton of enormous size. It was found in a sitting posture, and it is in a fair state of preservation. The skull measured 32.5 inches in circumference, mighty big, and the thigh bones 44.5 inches in length. Dr. Townsend examined the remains shortly after they were exhumed and gave it as his opinion that when living, the man must have been not less than 13 feet in height. It was immediately sold for $10,000. So this is Public Ledger, Memphis, Tennessee, 25th August, 1870. So somebody got a hold of it for $10,000, and who knows whatever happened. It probably brought around in shows and then thrown around in the garbage later on. Nobody wanted it. Some old bones, big bones. So this is the shame of the whole thing when you hear about these things. But 32.5 inches in circumference around the head. I mean, it's just immense. 13 feet tall. I'm telling you right now, they're throwing around these dolmen-sized stones like they were nothing. These people must have had incredible strength, even though they're probably suffering from what I call the gravity sickness. And I'm going to talk about that too, because I just remembered what book I read that in. I read a book, a science fiction book, a couple of years ago. I found out, I just remembered where I heard that phrase. There's no such thing as gravity sickness. There's zero gravity sickness or space sickness, but not gravity sickness. 8 or 9 foot, Crawfordville County. C.H. Lawrence of Bentonville, Wisconsin, has exhumed some bones of a prehistoric race from mounds near his home. One of the skeletons indicated that it once formed the frame of a man 8 or 9 feet tall. Among the collection are 3 complete jaw bones, in each of which every tooth is intact and perfect, except that some are greatly worn. Those in one jaw having been shortened to the level of the gums. So again, when they said they found molars in the front, and now they're saying, most likely it's from where. But even if let's say it is from where or whatever, that would mean they were grinding up some pretty coarse stuff, and it's not meat, friends, and sugary vegetables and fruits and whatnot. That's from eating some pretty rough stuff or doing something, maybe some kind of task or something that, required teeth. I don't know, but just saying. Either way, there's no cavities in them. The teeth in the larger inferior maxillary were in a perfect state of preservation, although the row of molars on the left side was considerably worn, indicating that their owner in life had chewed principally on that side. It sounds awfully strange to me. It sounds to me like he's doing some kind of work or something required. I don't know. I'm just Throwing it out there, it wouldn't be unusual. In none of these teeth are any cavities in evidence, which, together with the fact that none are missing, would indicate that the mound building age was a very poor one for dentists. Hardy, har har. But you get the message. I keep on saying this all the time. They have this perfect teeth, so it indicates something about diet, having a cleaner diet, and that wouldn't include meat and sugary fruits and stuff like that. Whatever it is, eating too aquatic, aquatic vegetation that's sinewy and hard. I guess I don't know. Potosi giant, 7 and 8 foot skeletons. The evidence is kind of hard to read this article, but skeletons of a giant race found near Potosi. The evidence appears to be pretty well settled that this whole western country was once inhabited by a race of beings of gigantic stature who were not only hardworking and industrious fellows, but well up in many of the fine arts. What their laws, institutions, and code of morals consisted of, we shall probably never know, as printing presses and interviewing reporters were scarce in those days. But from the numerous mounds scattered all over the country, which the learned savants tell us were the work of their hands, it is quite easy to assume that they were heavy on the dig and took much delight in wielding the spade and shovel. They would be useful fellows to have in these days of railroads and canals. It is to be regretted that the race died out before the present system of internal improvements commenced. From time to time, the skeletons of an unknown race have been discovered in the different mounds mentioned up and down the Mississippi River, the last discovery of the kind being made near Potosi, Wisconsin, a little over a week ago. A young man by the name of Patterson, brother-in-law to S.M. Langworthy, Esquire, of this city, was engaged with a number of men in digging out for the foundation of a sawmill near the bank of the river. In digging this, it became necessary to remove one of these ancient mounds, or tumuli. The workmen had descended to the depth of about 7 feet when they unearthed 2 human skeletons, the bones of which were almost entire and in a good state of preservation. Upon taking them out, an accurate measurement was made of the skeletons, when one of them was found to be 7.5 feet and the other 8 feet in length. The jaws of each were filled with double rows of teeth, while the cheekbones were very high and prominent. Under the bones, a large collection of arrowheads and strange toys were found, which had evidently been buried with them. Strange to state, the workmen, instead of preserving these bones, carted them off into the